Katie Couric. Wow.
I know. I mean, I think of her as like an icon, honestly.
Icon.
She is just like, I don't know anyone who doesn't know who she is. She's broken more glass ceilings. First nighttime anchor on the Today Show for 20 some odd years. So dedicated, so smart, so sweet. Like it's like all of it. I'm very, very excited to talk to her.
I wonder if the people she interviews take her lack of abrasiveness as weakness.
You know, it's funny. I've thought about it because I think that there's some conversation about her having that reputation. America's sweetheart was really the words that everyone always said about her. But I kind of think of it as a little bit of a Trojan horse for her, because I think that she can come into these, you know, no offense, but like men who like maybe don't view women in the same, you know, level or whatever, equal, and she can come in all sweetly, like as if that's really what she's leading with, but really what she's leading with is this like fierceness and intelligence. And so I think that, you know, being America's sweetheart, which I think is authentic, like she really is this sweet woman, but it's really just, it's just the thing that disarms you, so you'll end up telling her what she's asking you.
I agree. Well, we'll get into during the hour. Her family, she and her family, have been struck with a what's the word? What's the meteor? The meteor shower.
Mm-hmm.
There's a name for the meteor shower of cancer in her family. I mean, everybody was getting cancer, unbelievably so.
And yet, I mean, really. I mean, well, her husband and her sister. Well, we'll talk about it. They both passed. Her first husband and her sister both passed from it. But herself and her mother and father, they both had it, and I think and her new husband as well. But I think they're all fine.
Fine, but the fact that they
had to deal with it.
All right, we're ready.
No time but now. Before we jump into today's episode, we'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, LifeWave. At No Time But Now, our mission is to help you live your life with intention, embracing new possibilities and becoming the best version of yourself. That's why we're excited to partner with LifeWave, a company focused on innovative wellness technologies designed to support people on their journey toward feeling and living their best life.
You look amazing, Bill.
I've been told that. I don't know what that means, actually.
It's not a like, you look good for 95. You look good. You do. And you look really healthy today.
But it's been a long time. When did you start, Katie? How old were you?
Gosh, well, I started in television news when I graduated from college. I was 22, and that was in excuse me. That was in 1979. I worked actually at ABC News in Washington.
How did you get the job?
How did I get the job? Well, I majored in American Studies, and I worked on my school newspaper at the University of Virginia. Summers off college, I worked at different radio stations in Washington, D.C., because I grew up right outside Washington.
So what did you do? Walk in and apply? Hi, my name is...
I actually went to the phone book, and I called all these different radio stations, and I said, do you have a summer internship program? And they did. And so I worked at WAJ.
So when you say that, Katie, you're saying, I'll work for you for nothing. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. And I worked at Pizza Hut at night, and I worked at an ice cream parlor.
No kidding.
To make some money. But luckily, I was able to live with my parents and just get some real work experience. Then I wrote for my school newspaper in college. And so by the time I graduated, I had amassed a fair amount of actual real work experience working at 3 different radio stations. So that didn't necessarily help when I tried to get a job at ABC News. I really had a hard time. And finally, I said to my mom, will you drive me down there, Mom, and just wait for me? So we got in our Buick cream-colored station wagon, pulled up. I said, I'll be right back.
Where was this? What city?
Washington, D.C. I went to the security guard in the front of the building or inside the lobby, and I said, hi, I'd like to have a tour of the newsroom. Is that possible? And the security guard looked at me like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I said, "Okay." And then I said, "Actually, I know the executive producer of World News Tonight. May I call him?" And the
Did
security
you? Did
guard,
you actually know him?
yeah, the
Oh,
security
well, yeah.
said, "Sure." And there was one of those house phones, that only is internal calling. So he said, "You can use the phone right there." And I picked it up and I said, "Davy Newman, please." And Davy Newman answered the phone kind of rough and he said, "Hello." And I said, "Davy, you don't, we haven't met, but this is Katie Couric. And the reason I'm calling is I am a good friend of your cousin, Julie Newman, who lives down the street from me. And your twin brothers, uh, Steve and Eddie, yeah, Steve and Eddie went to high school with my sister Kiki. And I was wondering if I could come up and just say hello." And he was like so flummoxed. He said, "Oh, sure." So I went up and I said hello. Then he introduced me to the deputy bureau chief, Kevin Delaney. Kevin invited me into his office. I explained how I had finagled my way in, and he found my resume in a whole pile of people who wanted to be desk assistants, which was the name of the entry level job. And he put it at the top of the pile. Sure enough, about 2 weeks later, I got a call saying I had a job at ABC News.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
I always tell young people, you've got to have a lot of moxie, which my dad used to say I had. You've got to figure out a way in, an angle, how to differentiate yourself. And that was how I did it. I think they were impressed that I figured out a way to,
The same attitude to getting an interview, isn't it?
yeah.
I have to say, going there, which I read, I remember being absolutely floored by. It's like you really are this incredible role model for everyone, but like women, I have two daughters. Like I want them to know your story, and I remember reading your book and thinking young women should be reading your story about how you got knocked around and how you kept coming back, and like it just didn't matter. You just kept moving forward.
Well, I think I am the most unlikely national news anchor, or was never, I never had someone say, "Oh, we're gonna mentor you and nurture you." Although I had some mentors along the way, but for some women of my generation, they had a male ally or mentor that kind of plucked them out and said, "Let me train you." I just didn't necessarily have the right look. At the time, it was sort of, and you guys probably remember this, Bill, you more than Melly probably, but back in the day, the women on television were quite glamorous. And in local news anyway, it was sort of the hot young woman with the more avuncular, older, more distinguished co-anchor.
Right. Right.
And a lot of these women were sort of, beauty queens a little bit. And I never, I looked fine, but I was never sort of this glamour puss. And
Right.
so I
We,
had to be very scrappy and really rely on a lot of my chutzpah and smarts to
But
get
but
ahead.
you exude uh, calmness and kindness, and you don't
respect.
respect your approach to an interview is kindly, as against I'm going to get the news, I'm going to get the truth out of you. What did you mean when you said? You're not aggressive in that way. Is that designed that way, or is that you?
I mean, I really think it depends on the interview. I try to approach each interview differently, in terms of my tone. Obviously, Bill, if I'm interviewing someone who experienced a tragedy or has experienced loss or is dealing with something incredibly challenging, my approach would be very different than if I interviewed a politician who wasn't answering my questions, which,
Mm.
or kind of was being very circumlocucious, shall I say, about
I
the
love it.
answering. So I try to lead with empathy most of the time, but there are other incidents where I am tough as nails and
Mhm.
am armed with really important information And I think I never go in there loaded for bear. And I try to stay calm about it too. But if they say something that contradicts a previous statement, Tim Russert was always great at that, by the way. He'd always bring up quotes that people had said and how they were being hypocritical. I'm pretty no nonsense when it comes to those kinds of interviews. But in general, um, if you want someone to be revelatory and feel comfortable talking about something that is tough, obviously making them feel like they matter, their story is worthy, that you care, and to lead with compassion is critically important.
Right. I promise you, we're going to talk about cancer
I'm happy to talk about anything with you.
okay, great. I don't know whether you know this or not, but Melanie had stage 4 breast cancer. I had stage 4 melanoma, just about the same time. So father and daughter.
I read it recently. My heart stopped.
Yeah.
I thought it was a current
No. We're both in, I hate the word remission. What I prefer is we're both cancer free. And in my optimistic approach, generally is that we're cured, and I have less time than she has. So maybe I've got a lifetime cure because my lifetime is going to be somewhat shorter than Melanie's.
I don't know about that one. Yeah, we argue about that one. You and I were diagnosed at the same time, which we'll get into 22.
Okay.
And he was 23. Yeah.
Well, first of all, can I just say, I'm so happy that you are both doing well.
Isn't that something?
That's a pretty harrowing diagnosis for each of you. And I'm just so thankful, honestly.
Yeah. Given the limited amount of your history that I know, that cancer has been a meteor storm in your existence. So many people in your circle have gotten cancer.
Well, that's true. I lived a charmed life until I was 40. Great family, intact nuclear family, parents who I adored, and vice versa. Incredible siblings. My dad never made a ton of money, but I never wanted for anything.
What did he do, your father?
My dad was a print reporter in his early career, first for the Macon Telegraph in Georgia and then the Atlanta Constitution. And then he went into public relations. Did fine, but there were 4 kids, and the most important thing in my family was going to a good college.
Yeah.
Great education. And anyway, I just had this wonderful kind of leave it to beaver life, and I miss my parents so much. But at 40, really at 41, and my husband Jay, my late husband Jay, used to say, and Mel remembers this from the book, I was born on a sunny day. I've just been a very upbeat, optimistic person. And then suddenly my world came crashing down when my very handsome, young, intelligent, wonderful, funny, fantastic dancer of a husband diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. It was shattering.
What did you do? When you say shattering, define shattering.
And also remembering that Katie was in the height of the Today Show. I mean, she went through it publicly.
I would say shattering is having the life you anticipated and fully expected before you. Suddenly there is a brick wall there, and you realize that it's not going to happen, and that your partner, your husband, the father of your 2 little girls, was probably not going to be around.
You mean the diagnosis was fatal, or we're going to work on you? You should be all right.
It was 1998 when Jay was diagnosed. He had metastatic colon cancer.
Was it in his liver?
It was all over his liver.
Okay.
It was very aggressive. And the doctor told me the prognosis was bleak. That didn't mean we didn't try everything. That didn't mean I didn't call everywhere. It didn't mean that we didn't have a hepatic artery pump that pushed the chemo straight to his liver. And then he had systemic chemo. That didn't mean that he didn't fight like hell, but it meant that it was a very, very tough battle.
How long a period of time was from diagnosis to his death?
9 months.
Wow.
You wrote in your book, and I cried when I read it, that you did everything. You wrote, "I did everything I could to keep Jay alive, but I'd wish I had done a better job in helping him die." And I thought that was so poignant because I think everybody feels that way. I think because keeping hope alive is so important, and yet having the hard conversation is really important. But when? Because if you have those conversations, hope sort of goes.
Right.
Wow. Interesting. How did you approach that, Katie?
Not very well. You know, I think, gosh, I was so inexperienced. I had never faced anything like this. My mom had angioplasty. My dad might have been in the early stages of Parkinson's, but I don't think so yet. I just had never faced this kind of health crisis. And I think I dealt with it. I was in sort of this kind of optimistic denial, like we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. There'll be another treatment. Something's going to come along. If that happens, there'll be this. If this happens, there'll be that. And I wish that I had had, in retrospect, someone to help me like navigate the emotional landmines. I think someone to give me advice. My parents were very supportive. I had tons of supportive friends, family members, doctors who I got to know very, very well. I just mean someone to help me navigate the really hard questions and the almost impossible conversations. The closest I got, and I wrote about this in my book, is Jay loved this house we had bought just really right before his diagnosis in Millbrook, New York, in Dutchess County. He loved horses. He was a really kind of gifted rider. He loved historic preservation. The closest thing I said to him was, "I'm scared to death that you're going to die." Was I'm not.
Did you say that early on, or
no? He was pretty sick, and I said, "I don't know how I'm going to come to this house if you're not here."
Wow.
Well, it strikes me because the conversation, that same wish for advice, and I think people in the medical community try as hard as they can, and some have a little more savvy at talking about these things. But for the most part, I once had someone tell me, if you have an oncologist that you're friendly with, get another oncologist, because usually they're pretty like the best ones, I think, are very much have the weight of the world on their shoulders and don't have a lot of time or energy for emotional conversations. That's just my experience living through this. So I just feel like what's so crazy is I feel like you going through that and coming out of it saying, "I wish I had done it differently." You're actually the person who's giving this sort of birth for people to have the conversation.
That's interesting.
To learn how to do it.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. When Melanie and I decided to launch this podcast, choosing our presenting sponsor was an important decision to us, but LifeWave made it easy. I had a number of fascinating conversations with David Schmidt, LifeWave's founder and inventor, and learned of his passion to stay on top of important developments in emerging wellness research. For more information about his 22-year-old life technology company, operating in over 70 countries, no less, visit lifewavehealth.com. That's lifewavehealth.com.
I think I was trying to protect Jay. Even the surgeon who was operating on him, when we met with him, he kind of sugarcoated it a bit and said there were shadows on his liver. I think they were following my lead, honestly. And instead of sort of being brutally honest. And this would have been hard too. There are no easy choices.
There's no right answer either.
With this.
Yeah.
I was so intent upon not having those 9 months be full of sadness and despair and anxiety. I just chose to try to inject hope in the scenario. But I think the hope I injected was unrealistic.
Did you believe it, or were you injecting?
I prayed for it, but I knew it was pretty bleak. When a doctor pulls you into one of those little corner rooms in a hospital and says the prognosis is really bleak, that was my internist, Tom Nash, who I
Right.
go to. That was really all I needed to hear. So I think,
Did you break down? Did you cry? Were you devastated? I mean, how did you react to that?
my heart sank and I was like a zombie. I remember I wrote about this too. I remember leaving the hospital in a daze, and
Mhm.
I had read about a man whose wife had died. And he was so out of it. Then, when he was walking home from the hospital, he was hit by a car and killed.
Oh my God.
And you could see how that happens because
Yes.
you're just
It's
so,
like out of body.
yeah, yeah. But I do think if there could be social workers or people to help families. And this was so sudden, he went from being a healthy guy to having stage colon cancer, like in the span of 24 hours.
Wow.
Mhm.
He, in hindsight, he had lost weight, and he hadn't been to a doctor for a while. He was like a lot of 41-year-old guys, thinking
Unhealthy.
invincible. So it was horrible.
How did you introduce this to your children?
My girls were only 5 and 1 when Jay was diagnosed. So my mom would always say, less is more. Don't burden kids with more than they need to know. And, Carrie was just 1, so that wasn't a conversation. But Ellie, I would say, when she'd asked me, well, is daddy going to get better? I'd say the doctors are really doing everything they can and they're trying really hard. And so is he to get better. Um, but I didn't say, oh, don't worry. Yes.
Right.
Mm.
Wow.
When after Jay had passed, you wrote about Ellie. So she must have been, I think, 2 at the time.
He was 6. Carrie
No,
was.
I mean Carrie. I'm sorry, Carrie. That she said that he came through her bedroom window, knelt down, and said that he was proud of her, and that really struck me as real. I don't know how you perceived it, or how she did, or later on in her life how she did, but I don't know those words. I mean, maybe if she said, he brought me My Little Pony.
He said, Carrie, I'm so proud of you.
I mean, a 2-year-old doesn't make that up, right? I mean,
Another time,
those words.
Ellie was, I think, in 2nd grade, and her teacher, Donna Friel, I think it was she said something about Jay, like, I'm so sorry your dad isn't here. And Ellie said something like, oh, he is. He's sitting right next to me.
Oh my goodness.
I wrote that down. Those were like, that had to be real. That's how I perceive it. I don't know. I don't.
Melanie, when the uniqueness maybe, or certainly unusual, of the two of us getting cancer and getting the kind of stage 4 cancer, which 5 years ago or maybe 10 would have been a death sentence. Pack your bags. You got, at most 5 months to live. You've gone into the doctor thinking you might have a cold, and you come out saying you're going to die. That's, life shattering. Melanie had a whole reaction that she needed to live with for quite a while. Right, Mel?
I'm not sure
Well, I
what
want
you're
you to-
asking me. But
Because
you mean like the spiritual part? Like the
Yeah, well, your fear of death is what I'm getting at.
Well, yeah. What I found the freedom in my terror of dying during cancer was not really anything worse than what I felt going into a party. I mean, I had such social anxiety. I had so much fear all the time. And then when you kind of draw that line, you realize you're really afraid that it's going to kill you in some weird way. Like your body doesn't understand why it thinks that. And that by really learning to accept that we're all going to die and that I'm going to die, and kind of coming to peace with that, which took a lot of work at time during my treatment, that I just was released from a lifetime of fear.
That's so interesting. What kind, may I ask a few
Yeah.
questions? I can't
Yeah.
help it. What kind of cancer did you have? I know you had breast cancer, but specifically.
HER2 positive breast
so you
cancer.
had Herceptin.
Yeah. And Herceptin and Perjeta, and was with my oncologist, Dr. John Glaspie at UCLA, was one of the guys on the team that rediscovered it, repurposed it for
And so-
immunotherapy.
And Denny Slayman.
Yes, was the leader.
He's the guy who really
Yeah.
discovered Herceptin. And
Yes.
he's one of the original doctors from Stand Up to Cancer. So, I'm
Oh,
how lucky this Herceptin and
Yes.
whatever additional drug you were on, and this immunotherapeutic approach. I mean, it changed everything.
it changed everything. We were just talking with a doctor before this, that I think that not in the too distant future, that with that kind of cancer, which has been around, the Herceptin Perjeta, for about, I think, around 19, 20 years, I don't think they're going to do. I had the chemo, radiation, surgery, and then a year of Herceptin Perjeta. I don't think you're going to go through all that. I think you'll just have the Herceptin Perjeta, because that's really what changed everything.
That's amazing. And Bill, for your melanoma, stage 4 melanoma means it had metastasized. And was there a drug that changed everything for you? Or
Yeah, I don't know the name of the drug, and
I do. Keytruda. And his doctor was the one who, his doctor
was one of the guys who worked on discovering it. Yeah, we both lucked out, and that is really more than anything that I've learned through these conversations about cancer and about what to do is the choice of doctor. I mean, one doctor who saw the lump on my jaw here said, "Oh, it's a salivary gland. Just massage it." Massaged it for a month. It got bigger, and a friend of mine who's a cosmetic doctor in Beverly Hills rides horses with me. Is in the same barn, and we have become wonderful friends. And one day, and I said, "I got this thing," and he put his doctor's hands on me. And he said, "You better get this out." And I immediately went to an oncologist, and luck, maybe he sent me. I don't remember how I got to Dr. Hamid, but
he sent you.
The guy. He was the fortunate. He was the guy who knew all about that, and sent me right away. And I got it out, and then I had 2 years of treatment, and then it's been a year and a half more, and I'm cancer free, as is Melanie. And it had metastasized, little bright spots in my brain and in my lung, but with the treatment, it almost immediately went away. And then you have to deal with the poison that they give you to kill the cancer cells is also killing the healthy cells. Then it's a race between life and death. You survive by not dying as quickly as the cancer cells die.
Right. But, that's the beauty of these targeted approaches and immunotherapy, even though immunotherapy your immune system can get too revved up, right? And
that's what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And hurt healthy organs, but also just, chemotherapy too. That obviously is this sort of, I call it a scorched body approach,
You literally feel it. I would say to my husband, like, it's so crazy. I was writing a book about my experience, and I thought I could write how curing cancer is killing me, because I could feel that my body was trying to die from the chemo, like not from the cancer.
Right.
Right. It's a really odd feeling.
You all are both a testament, honestly, to modern medicine.
Absolutely.
And Bill, to your point, That's something I think of all the time, especially when I was diagnosed with breast cancer quite early. I stage 1B, but I remember going, to New York Hospital. I love my breast cancer surgeon, Dr. Lisa Newman, going through all these different, Siemens machines and, having this state of the art medical care and thinking, what do people do? What do people do
Right?
who are underinsured, uninsured, don't have that?
My friend's stepdaughter. So now, and I know this is something else to talk about. Cancer is affecting people younger and younger. 29 years old, celiac. So there were some symptoms that they attributed to celiac, but ignored, including blood in the stool. And it went on and on for a year. And she was just diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And she's getting all the treatment now, but that took Herculean efforts because she was underinsured. And now
The
finally
principle is you got to look for you got to get a good doctor.
that's so hard for some people.
The choice of doctor is primary. You're either going to die or live with the choice of doctor.
A lot of times that's true, or, your ability to afford healthcare. That's what I think is such a crime in this country, that we really do have a caste system of people who can afford good healthcare and people who simply can't.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
You're right. And we've been talking to these humanistic doctors. I mean, when a doctor takes a medical degree and gets, in effect, an ethics degree in philosophy, what's the connection? Well, the connection is how to make medicine work for, well, in a lot of people in this country. How to get the most efficient medical system to work for the most people is a problem that America has not solved yet.
What's happening with the Find It Early Act?
Not a lot, honestly. It's very frustrating. I think that right now, well, we don't even want to talk about the state of our politics, probably.
I know.
Everything seems to be stalled. The Find It Early Act, for people who are listening or watching, is to require insurance companies to pay for additional screening for women with dense breasts. 42% of women over the age of 40 have what are considered dense breasts. There are 4 different stages from, slightly dense to very dense. And the reason why this matters is when you have a mammogram, the abnormality often is the same white shade as the dense cells behind it. So
Melanie.
it's like looking for a snowball.
Melanie's story.
Yeah, it's like looking for a snowball in a field of snow. And oftentimes, these cancers are missed in women with dense breasts. The problem is that to get additional screening, a lot of
It costs.
companies won't pay for it. So
Yeah.
it's up that people, women of means pay for that additional screening, and women who don't,
Just don't.
aren't able to, and it's just terribly unfair. So this legislation would say to insurance companies, if the clinician or doctor mammographer determines that this person has dense breasts, you have to cover that additional screening.
That's so important. It's not even, I know so many women, so many who say the mammogram missed it. They got their mammograms, but they're the ones who found the cancer from probably a self-exam. Mine I found from not even trying to find it. My finger went to the bump and I was like, and then I got it checked. And I always got an ultrasound as part of my care because I had such dense breasts. My doctor once had mentioned, you might want to think about getting an MRI, but insurance doesn't cover it. I was scared to hear, and there'll be some false positives, but don't worry about that. I was such a frightened person that the idea of getting a false positive sounded terrifying. Yeah. And I was like, insurance won't cover it. I can't do it. This really, I could have found a way to do that. And I just was afraid to do it. But if it was a requirement, or just like the insurance is covering this, you need to do it. There's no wiggle room. You just go get it. I would have found it so much earlier. So it's really an important thing. for women to know. I mean, even without the coverage, then talk to your doctor, find out what else you can do.
That's why I was so open about my breast cancer diagnosis. Well, I mean, I showed my colon on national television.
I wanted to talk about
What's left? Although I told
that.
her I'm drawing a line. I'm drawing the line at a pap smear. but
Why is it all so invasive?
I wanted people to know about this dense breast situation because it affects so many women.
Well,
And
they missed it on her examination, and she listened to her body saying, no, no, no. She went back in.
Yeah,
And
they
it's-
missed it on the ultrasound as well.
And
And
then
And I was about to run because I was like, okay, I checked it off the box. But then I said, I think you need to check again, basically. And I've said this before on this show, but like under her breath, she said, I would have missed that. Anyway, I heard her say it, but she wasn't saying it to me.
wow. Well, I'm glad you advocated for yourself.
Thank
That's so
you.
important.
Thank you. Me
Such
too.
an important message for people. I have so much respect for doctors and scientists and cancer researchers and all kinds of medical researchers, but I think people realize that, they're not gods. They, as my mom used to say, doctors bury their mistakes. And,
Sure. True.
you have
that's true.
your own best advocate.
Yeah. Yeah. Stand Up to Cancer, the foundation that you co-founded in 2008. Can you tell us about it? I know that it was based, and it's really funny because, Dad, you had asked somebody, I forget who we were talking to, but you said, is there any situation where scientists can work together and not compete? It was like, that thought you had, I don't remember who we were talking to, but I was actually like, I think, and it's exactly what Stand Up to Cancer was founded on, right?
Yeah. Well, it was founded by some pretty hard charging women.
Including yourself.
Laura Zipkin, who was a producer in Hollywood, who sadly lost her fight with breast cancer. She produced Spider-Man and a bunch of other movies. I don't know if you all have heard of Laura. Sherry Lansing, of course. I'm sure you know Sherry. Lisa Paulson, who was head of the Entertainment Industry Foundation, and a number of other high-powered women, 9 of us in all, said, there's got to be a better way, and we were frustrated at the slow pace of breakthroughs, honestly. And we thought, if 2 heads are better than 1, then why wouldn't 10 heads be better than 2? And why can't all these scientists working hard and doing incredibly important stuff, but working in silos, why couldn't they collaborate more? Why couldn't they work together? Why couldn't they share their wisdom and their tissue samples and their experience and their ideas? And wouldn't that turbocharge advancements in cancer research? So we came up with this concept of dream teams and said, let's have people from different institutions, from different pharmaceutical companies, from different, biotech firms, all get together and collaborate. And initially they were like, what is this? We're not sharing this. And then they became so energized by this idea of collaboration versus competition. And that our research that we've supported has contributed to, I think, something like 9 new FDA-approved drugs, including Keytruda, by the way.
Wow.
And, it's just been this incredibly exciting way to try to move science forward faster.
That's amazing. And $800 million you've raised.
Yes.
And 10 medical breakthroughs.
Yeah, from very pushy women.
I love it.
Yeah,
They gotta rule the world.
Hey, we're coming back. I hope you do. If enhancing your well-being and living life to the fullest are important to you, then you should know those goals are important to Lifeway as well. From light-infused water to unique patch technology to daily supplements, LifeWave products are focused on helping people live healthier, more vibrant lives. And we're delighted to have them as our presenting sponsor. You can learn more at lifewavehealth.com. That's lifewavehealth.com. Let me go back to your personal story. You began to get reports of other cancers in your family, both blood and by marriage. Tell me about that as well.
I think when you're faced with this kind of life-changing challenge, you just put one foot in front of the other. And I had a job I loved. I'd been on the Today Show for 7 years, and so it was really kind of my halfway mark of my time on that show. But my career could not, or my star, if you will, could not have been burning brighter than at this time. And I had 2 daughters, and you just kind of do what you have to do. It wasn't until Jay died, it wasn't until 2 years later that my sister called me in the green room of the Tonight Show after I
Mm.
met Jay Leno and said, "Well, I gotten a message. Please call your sister Emily. It's urgent." And of course, I panicked because I always had this fear of losing my parents when I was younger. Like, that just terrified me. And I called her and she said, "Don't worry, it's not mom or dad, it's me." And she said, I have pancreatic cancer and it's all over my liver.
Oh, God.
It was just obviously
Oh
devastating.
my God. I mean, there was your husband all over again.
Yes.
So what did you do?
I tried to be helpful. Emily's husband, George, was the head of cardiology at the University of Virginia. So
Mm.
they had, great medical care. They
Right.
didn't need my help in connecting them with doctors, although I did connect them with a person who had a very kind of novel approach to pancreatic cancer, was doing gemcitabine, and he was doing this kind of novel chemo cocktail. So I connected Emily with him. He was at Columbia. His name was Dr. Rob Fine. I tried to be as supportive as I could. It was crushing for my parents, obviously crushing for my sister. My
Mm.
sister was at the time running for lieutenant governor of Virginia with Mark Warner, who was running for governor. And my sister was a real rising star in the Democratic Party. She was, the kind of Democrat that I guess is, is not considered great these days, but she was sort of a centrist who reached across the aisle, who could really kind of talk to people who had different views than she did and try to compromise and come up.
Really needed now.
Yes, but kind of a rare breed, right? Compromise has become such a dirty word in politics. But anyway, it was tragic. And, you know, um, my sister was an amazing person. I have another sister who's also an amazing person and a brother, but this was my oldest sister. And, you know, I think the death of a child for anyone, no matter how old that child is just so devastating. And I think it really broke my parents.
Oh,
They're the receptacle of all those memories and experiences they had.
First child holds a special, special place, I think, in your heart. It
Yeah.
doesn't, you don't love every child equally and, each one for different reasons, but
you had that time alone with them too. I don't know. You bond differently.
listen, it's been hard, but I think what's helped me is my advocacy by starting Stand Up to Cancer, by showing my colon and doing a colonoscopy, continuing to talk about colon cancer screening, to talk what Melanie was mentioning about the fact that younger and younger people are being diagnosed with cancer, not just colon cancer, although
Right.
now that is the number one cancer killer of people under the age of 50.
Is there any thought why?
There are a lot of theories, everything from microplastics to, ultra processed foods. Some people are saying the overprescription of antibiotics. I don't know whether there are obviously some environmental reasons. Maybe it's pesticides. Maybe, who knows?
Right.
But it's criminal. nephew, my sister who passed away from pancreatic cancer, my nephew, her son, Ray, is an oncologist, hematologist, and
Oh my gosh.
he
Wow.
deals with these patients. And I talked to him and about these. Oh, and by the way, just a quick addendum: ultra marathoners and marathoners in one study
Yeah.
more likely to be diagnosed with early onset colorectal cancer, and they don't know why. But
Wow.
anyway, my nephew, I said, "What do you do, Ray, when there's like a young person who has colon cancer?" And
A runner, I mean, a athlete.
yes,
Yeah.
well, yeah, and a lot of these people are in good shape. And he said, I was with a 38-year-old father of two little kids, and there was just, we had exhausted every treatment. And he said, I just sat down with them in their room, in the hospital room, and I cried.
I
Wow.
don't know how doctors can do this day in, day out. I
Yeah.
mean, every story is a tragedy, and it has ramifications. It isn't just the person getting the cancer; it's the whole family. It's and then the treatment they may not be able to afford, so they sell everything. And there's all these stories about medical
The debt.
debt. Yeah, the bankruptcies. It's overwhelming to think about, actually.
This podcast is a real buzzkill.
Like, you feel sad.
Well, but on
You're
the
a
other
little
hand,
sad.
in the conversations we've been having with remarkable doctors, there's a sense of optimism about the possibility of the cure. Don't go away. We'll be right back. At Lifeway, they believe living younger is a lifestyle. From wearable technology to light-infused water. This is next-level stuff. But helping to optimize well-being is only part of what we do. Lifeway also offers a purpose-driven opportunity, empowering you to take control of your livelihood as well. Think of that. Lifewave can power your well-being and your next entrepreneurial journey. If you like the sound of that, visit lifewavehealth.com. That's lifewavehealth.com.
Katie, you have a media company and you're making a documentary called Hormonal.
Yes. I'm in the throes of making that right now. I'm not directing
Tell
it.
us about it.
Well, I kept reading for a few years now about the disparities in medical research for men versus women. And I read a big article written by Susan Dominus, who's a New York Times reporter, in the magazine section about the Women's Health Initiative, a study on hormone replacement therapy that was overseen by Bernadine Healy. And it just made me so mad that this study had been prematurely stopped because of the way the results had been interpreted and the way the clinical trials had been set up. Anyway, I just kept reading more and more and more. And I just thought there's so many of these diseases that haven't gotten enough attention. And I mean, here's some statistics that will give you an idea of why I got pissed off. Women, it takes an average of 4 years longer to be diagnosed with the disease than men. Women weren't required to be included in clinical trials until 1993. So the tests were done on male mice. Women's hormonal fluctuations made scientists think that they weren't the right population to be studied because there were too many variables. Dosage was based on men, not women. So when women took some of the same drugs that were prescribed to men, it had very adverse consequences and it was too much medication. Erectile dysfunction, which affects 19% of men, has gotten 5 times the funding as PMS, which affects 90% of women.
Wow.
So I think there is so much sort of built in and ingrained sexism in the medical establishment, really primarily because for so long it was mostly men and mostly white men. And so they never had the experience of that women had medically And so a lot of these issues haven't been addressed. Did you know it takes an average of 10 years to be diagnosed, for example, with endometriosis? That's
Yeah.
insane. And that is an incredibly painful condition. So I really wanted to interrogate why and more importantly, the ramifications of women's medical situations being underfunded, um,
Understudied.
understudied, dismissed, not believed. They're
Right.
underestimated. So,
This is such a superficial example, but it's something I just read the other day about workouts that sports medicine is researched on men, and workouts are designed for men, and that menopausal women need a very different workout than non-menopausal women, and it actually helped me with my workouts because women who are in menopause are supposed to lift such heavy weights that after 6 reps you're exhausted and you stop. So that's like we aren't told that. That's that if I pick up a very heavy weight, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get hurt. I should put it down.
and now they're looking into ACL tears and how they affect women differently than men.
Oh,
When
wow.
they get them, the role estrogen plays in ACL tears, and also the way women's injuries, how they're rehabilitated. So it's just a very
Goes
interesting,
on.
I think.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing what you're doing. And I have to say, I went on katiecouric.com and I was laughing with my husband. I said, I got makeup advice. I read about your nephew's movie and I read about politics. And I was like, it was all in the same sitting. I was like, this is super fun.
Yeah, well, there's a little something for
That's why.
everybody.
It's been fun. My business has been fun because, I had done all the big jobs in broadcast television and I still really wanted to work. And luckily, most people now get their information on
Online.
like a little
Most,
handheld television.
Right.
That's
rectangle,
right.
absolutely.
And so it's been really exciting. My husband is the CEO and I love working with him. And we have about 40 employees and we have newsletters. I have a podcast. We do a lot of interviews, primarily political ones online. And, I feel very energized. How do you all like doing a podcast? Have you enjoyed it?
I love to talk to people, and in the past, I've done more than one interview show, being the interviewer. I love discovering that kernel of the precious story inside everybody's head. I've been pretty successful in getting those stories out.
And I'm curious, Bill, and then obviously I want to hear from Melanie, but how do you think sort of you strike me kind of as cut from the same cloth as I am, as a very curious person
For sure.
and somebody who's really interested in other people, a lifelong learner, as they say. And I'm curious how that has enriched your life and kind of made it better even as you age.
You were talking about lifting weights and keeping your body, your muscles active and stressing them to a certain point, and that'll make you healthy and enlarge the muscle and make it healthy. Same thing applies to your brain. Your brain needs that exercise of curiosity. What does that mean? Why is the sky blue? Examine why the sky is blue, find out why the sky is blue, and then find out the carbon dioxide in the air. I mean, one thing relates to another, and you exercise your brain in the same way you're exercising your muscles. And the older I get, the more curious, the more passionate I get about finding out why and what and where. I have these long conversations with AI. And like AI remembers your questions. So slowly AI is becoming my best friend.
Your best friend, the only person that really listens. I want to say that you're 100% right. I actually wrote it down a couple times. Like you and my dad, to me, have a very similar. There's a nature of moving forward, and bad things happen, but you take it and you learn and you move forward. And it's a quality for all of the rest of us to just watch and learn and admire, and then try to be a little bit like you guys, because it's survival and it's pretty
And
uncanny.
There's nothing else you can do.
Well, there's some people who lay in bed. I know a couple.
It makes life so much more interesting, right, Bill?
Well, that's what life is about.
I know it's your podcast, but
No,
Melanie,
it's our.
well, both of yours, but Melanie, how do you like doing this and doing it with your dad?
I love it. I never thought that I would be able to do something like this with him. It's very different for me in my life prior to it. First of all, I think he's wonderful at it, and watching him, the way he's so interested and the way he talks with people, I'm learning a lot just by watching him. And then I think as a recording, kind of like for prosperity, it's like like it just as our lives go on and the older we get, I love that my kids will be able to refer back to it and learn something. And I love that I'll have it to look back on if I live longer than you, but I'm not certain yet.
Life, death, people dying, and you're realizing the platitude of quickly it goes by. But life is so short that our podcast is no time but now. And that but now is you've got to live your life now. You got to take your adventures now. You got to meet the people, be kind, be inquisitive, whatever the qualities are. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do something now. And that's what our podcast is about. And as for my relationship with my daughter, I have two other daughters. This daughter, I've begun to know better than anybody. And she is this incredibly intelligent, perceptive human being that I've always loved as my daughter. I've now love her for her intellect and her curiosity and her ability to work hard. She once had one of the great women's shops in Los Angeles and then gave it up for children, actually.
I did.
Really? What was it?
It was called Dari. It was here near us in Studio City. And it was great fun, and But you know what? It was funny is I've always been good with clothes and helping people, but it was really about making people feel better. And when I kind of distilled that mission with my employees and everything, all I care about is that we make people feel better when they leave than when they walked in. And I realized how important that was for me. And then I think I carried that into any work thing I've ever done. So I feel that way about this as well.
That's incredible. Well, I love you both. I don't know you that well, but I can say that I think you're a great duo. And I'd love to meet you all in person someday.
Oh, that would be such an honor, honestly.
I want to do that more than ever. We'd love to have dinner with you. You're a remarkable lady. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Very generous of you.
Before we go, Bill, I just have one more thing to say to you.
What's that, dear?
Live long and prosper.
I can't do that. Okay, whatever you say.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on No Time But Now, and to LifeWave for supporting these conversations that we're so proud to bring you each week. Please join us next week for a new episode and tell your friends. Subscribe on our website and the YouTube page, and please tell us what you think. If you'd like to work with us, learn more about us or our sponsors, or join our community, visit our website at notimebutnow.com.